Sergeant Michael Henley had always been drawn to the ocean, its vastness a comforting reminder of the unknown. Stationed at a remote coastal base, his patrols along the deserted shoreline were routine until the night the sky burned. It began with a streak of fire slicing through the clouds. Michael froze, his eyes tracking the glowing object as it hurtled toward the ocean. The impact was deafening, a shockwave rattling the ground beneath his feet. Seconds later, a plume of steam erupted from the water where the object had vanished, glowing faintly in the moonlight. Michael grabbed his radio. "Command, this is Henley. Possible crash site approximately 5 clicks north of my position, requesting immediate assistance." "Copy that, Henley." "Investigate, but proceed with caution," the response crackled. Grabbing his flashlight and securing his gear, Michael sprinted toward the crash site, the roar of the ocean growing louder with each step. The sight that greeted him was surreal, a shimmering metallic object half submerged in the surf, its edges glowing faintly. It was no aircraft he recognized. Cautiously, Michael waded into the water, the icy waves soaking through his boots. The craft was sleek and oval-shaped, its surface unmarred by dents or burns despite the crash. As he circled it, a faint hiss broke the silence, and a hatch began to open with a hiss of pressurized air. He raised his flashlight, his pulse quickening. What emerged from the craft was beyond anything he had ever imagined. A woman, her skin shimmering like pearls under the light, stumbled out. She was drenched and disoriented, her movements unsteady as she collapsed into the water. Without hesitation, Michael lunged forward, catching her before the waves could carry her away. Her skin was cool to the touch, her features strikingly alien, yet undeniably graceful. "Hey, can you hear me?" he asked, his voice urgent. Her eyes fluttered open, large, luminous, and the color of the deep sea. "Help me," she whispered, her voice faint but musical. Michael tightened his grip, his mind racing. Whatever or whoever she was, she needed him. "I've got you," he said, his tone steady. "You're safe now." Carrying the woman to shore, Michael laid her gently on the sand. Her silvery robes clung to her form. She shivered, her breathing shallow. He pulled his jacket off and draped it over her shoulders, his instincts kicking in. "Command, this is Henley," he said into his radio. "I've got a survivor, a woman, unidentified craft, possible alien origin. Repeat, alien origin. Requesting immediate medical support." The radio crackled back. "Acknowledged, Henley. Evac team en route. Hold position." The woman stirred, her gaze fixing on him. "Where am I?" she murmured, her accent strange yet lyrical. "You're on Earth," Michael replied, kneeling beside her. "You crashed into the ocean. What's your name?" She hesitated, her eyes clouding with caution. "Serena," she said at last, her voice soft. "All right, Serena," Michael said, his tone calm. "Do you know what happened? Why your craft went down?" Her expression darkened. "It was sabotage," she whispered. "I was being pursued." Michael's stomach tightened. "Pursued by who?" Before she could answer, the distant thrum of helicopter blades cut through the air. Michael glanced toward the horizon, spotting the rescue team's searchlights piercing the darkness. "Stay with me," he said, turning back to her. "Help's coming." Serena reached out her hand, trembling as it gripped his arm. "You don't understand," she said urgently. "They will come for me, and when they do, they will stop at nothing." Michael's gaze hardened, a surge of protectiveness rising within him. "Let them try," he said firmly. "They'll have to get through me first." As the rescue team arrived and secured the crash site, Michael couldn't shake the feeling that he had just stepped into something far larger than himself. And as Serena's enigmatic eyes met his once more, he knew one thing for certain: his life would never be the same. The rescue team whisked Serena and Michael to a secure military base inland. The alien craft, too heavy to retrieve immediately, was left under heavy surveillance on the beach. As Michael stepped off the transport, his thoughts swirled. Serena's words haunted him. They will stop at nothing. Inside the base, Serena was taken to a medical bay, her glowing skin drawing astonished stares from the personnel. Michael, still dripping from the ocean, stood guard outside, his instincts unwilling to leave her vulnerable. After what felt like hours, the door opened and Dr. Helena Cross, the base's head scientist, emerged. Her expression was a mix of curiosity and urgency. "Henley, we need to talk." Michael followed her into a private briefing room where a holographic display of Serena's vitals glowed on the table. Her anatomy was unmistakably alien, her internal systems unlike anything recorded. "She's extraordinary," Cross said, shaking her head. "Her physiology is advanced, adaptive in ways that defy logic. But that's not the most shocking part." Michael leaned forward. "What is?" "She's not just some visitor," Cross said, her voice low. "Her neural scans suggest heightened brain activity tied to leadership and decision-making. She's a ruler of some kind. A queen, maybe." Michael's heart skipped a beat. A queen? That explained her regal demeanour and cryptic warnings. Before he could process the revelation, an alert blared through the base. "Intruders detected." The base went into lockdown. Through the windows, Michael saw sleek, angular ships descending silently from the clouds. Marauder soldiers, humanoid but clad in dark, menacing armour, emerged, their weapons pulsing with an eerie green light. Michael grabbed his rifle and sprinted to the medical bay. Inside, Serena sat upright, her expression calm, but her luminous eyes burning with determination. "They found me," she said simply. Michael nodded, his jaw tightening. "Not for long. We're getting you out of here." As the marauders breached the base perimeter, Michael and Serena moved swiftly through the corridors, the sounds of distant gunfire and shouting echoing around them. "Stay close," Michael said, leading her through a service tunnel toward an emergency evacuation point. "I've trained for combat," Serena said, surprising him. "I can defend myself." Michael glanced back, incredulous. "You're a queen, not a soldier." Her lips curved into a faint smile. "In my world, we must be both." They reached a junction where a group of marauders blocked their path. Before Michael could react, Serena raised her hand, her fingers glowing faintly. A pulse of energy radiated from her palm, stunning the intruders. They collapsed, their weapons clattering to the floor. Michael stared at her, stunned. "What was that?" "Bioluminescent discharge," she said, her tone matter-of-fact. "A defensive mechanism unique to my kind." Michael shook his head, a small grin forming despite the chaos. "Remind me never to underestimate you." They reached the evacuation point where a helicopter awaited them. A squad of coalition soldiers held the marauders at bay, but their defences were faltering. Michael and Serena sprinted toward the chopper as explosions lit up the night sky. "Get her on board," Michael shouted to the pilot as they reached the landing zone. Serena climbed in, but as Michael turned to join her, a blast knocked him to the ground. Disoriented, he looked up to see a marauder towering over him, its weapon aimed at his chest. Before it could fire, Serena leaped from the helicopter, her bioluminescent glow blazing. She unleashed another energy pulse, sending the marauder flying. Grabbing Michael's arm, she pulled him to his feet. "Don't you dare get yourself killed," she said, her tone sharp but tinged with concern. Michael grinned despite the pain in his ribs. "I'll try." They boarded the helicopter just as the marauders regrouped. The chopper lifted off, weaving through a hail of enemy fire as they soared into the night. Michael looked at Serena, who sat silently, her gaze fixed on the horizon. "Thanks for saving my life," he said softly. She turned to him, her expression unreadable. "You saved mine first." Michael didn't reply, but as the helicopter disappeared into the clouds, he realized he was no longer just a soldier, caught in an extraordinary situation. He was now Serena's protector, and perhaps her only ally. The helicopter landed at a hidden coalition outpost deep within the forested mountains. As Michael and Serena disembarked, the gravity of their situation became clearer. The marauders wouldn't stop pursuing her, not until they had her in their grasp, or worse. The outpost was a hub of activity, with soldiers and scientists scrambling to fortify defences and analyse the remains of the marauder tech recovered during their retreat. Serena, despite her exhaustion, held herself with poise, her luminous eyes scanning her surroundings. "You should rest," Michael said, walking beside her as they were escorted into the main command centre. "There's no time," Serena replied firmly. "The marauders will strike again, and I must prepare." Inside the command centre, Commander Bryce, a grizzled veteran, greeted them with a grim expression. "Sergeant Henley, you've brought us quite the guest," he said, nodding to Serena. "And quite the mess." Michael bristled at the tone but kept his voice level. "She's the reason we're still standing. Without her, none of us would have made it out alive." Serena stepped forward, her presence commanding. "Commander Bryce, I understand the danger my presence brings, but I will not hide while my people, and yours, suffer. The marauders are a threat, not just to my world, but to yours as well," Serena said. Bryce raised an eyebrow. "What exactly are you suggesting?" "A counterstrike," Serena said, her voice steady. "Their fleet is vulnerable now. If we can disable their command ship, we can fracture their forces." Bryce folded his arms, his skepticism evident. "You make it sound simple." "It isn't," Michael interjected, "but it's our best shot. Serena has insider knowledge of their tactics and weaknesses. If we work together, we can pull this off." After a tense silence, Bryce nodded. Collectively, all right, but this had better work. The next hours were a blur of planning and preparation. Serena worked tirelessly alongside the coalition strategists, providing invaluable insights into marauder technology and fleet formations. Her confidence and knowledge began to win over even the most skeptical soldiers. Michael watched her from a distance, marvelling at her transformation. She wasn't just a survivor, she was a leader, and for the first time he understood the weight she carried. As the final plan took shape, Michael approached Serena. She was studying a holographic display of the marauder fleet, her brow furrowed in concentration. "You're taking this all in stride," he said, his voice light but sincere. Serena glanced at him, her expression softening. "I've spent my life preparing for challenges like this, but I've never had an ally quite like you." Michael smiled faintly. "Guess I'm full of surprises." She hesitated, then placed a hand on his arm. "I owe you more than I can ever repay, Michael. Your courage has inspired me." Before he could respond, the alarm blared, signalling their launch window. It was time. The mission was bold, but precise. A small strike team, led by Michael and Serena, would infiltrate the marauder flagship under the cover of a larger diversionary assault. Their goal? Disable the ship's core reactor, leaving the fleet leaderless and in disarray. As their transport ship approached the marauder flagship, tension hung heavy in the air. Michael checked his rifle, his gaze flicking to Serena, who sat beside him, her bioluminescent skin faintly glowing in the dim light. "Stay close to me," he said. "These guys don't mess around." "I can handle myself," she replied with a small smile. "But thank you." The ship docked stealthily, the team slipping aboard unnoticed. The corridors of the flagship were vast and oppressive, lined with dark metal and pulsing with green light. Michael and Serena led the way, their movements silent but purposeful. They reached the reactor chamber, but the marauders were ready. An ambush awaited them, and a fierce firefight erupted. Michael fought with calculated precision, covering Serena as she used her bioluminescent energy to disarm and disable enemies. As the battle raged, Serena accessed the reactor's control panel, her hands moving deftly over the alien interface. "I need a few more minutes," she shouted over the chaos. "Your time's up," Michael quipped, firing at an approaching marauder. "It's not like we're in a hurry." Finally, Serena stepped back, her face lit with triumph. "The reactor's destabilized. We need to move now." The team fought their way back to the docking bay, the ship shuddering as explosions rocked the flagship. They barely made it aboard their transport before the reactor imploded, tearing the Marauder flagship apart. As they escaped, Michael looked at Serena, who sat quietly, her expression a mix of exhaustion and relief. "We did it," he said. She turned to him, her luminous eyes meeting his. "No, Michael, we did it together." The bond between them had grown stronger, forged in the fire of battle and the shared determination to protect what they held dear. But even as they celebrated their victory, both knew their journey was far from over. The destruction of the Marauder flagship sent shockwaves through the galaxy. Without their command vessel, the enemy fleet splintered, retreating into disorganized factions. The coalition forces secured a much-needed victory, but it came at a cost: soldiers injured, resources depleted, and the war far from over. Back at the coalition outpost, the air buzzed with cautious optimism. Soldiers cheered as reports confirmed the Marauders' retreat, and Serena was met with growing respect from those who had initially doubted her. Yet in the quiet of the command room, the atmosphere was sombre. "We bought ourselves time, but the Marauders aren't gone," Commander Bryce said, addressing the gathered leaders. "Their scattered forces will regroup eventually. We need to prepare for that." Serena stood tall despite her weariness. The Marauders thrive on fear and division. With their leader eliminated, this is our chance to unite other systems against them. If we act now, we can strike a decisive blow before they regain their strength, Serena said. Bryce nodded, though his expression remained grim. "And how do you propose we unite them?" "The factions have been at odds for decades." "I will lead the charge," Serena said, her voice steady. "My title carries weight across the stars. If I call for unity, they will listen." Michael, standing beside her, folded his arms. "You're putting yourself right back in the crosshairs. They'll come for you again." Serena met his gaze, a flicker of warmth breaking through her resolve. "I trust you'll be there to stop them." Michael smirked. "You're damn right I will." As the outpost mobilized, Serena worked tirelessly to draft her message to the galaxy. It was more than a plea for unity. It was a declaration of defiance against the Marauders. Michael helped where he could, offering advice and providing the kind of unflinching support she had come to rely on. One evening, as they reviewed their plans in the quiet of the command room, Serena paused, her luminous eyes thoughtful. "Do you ever regret saving me?" she asked suddenly. Michael leaned back, surprised by the question. "Not for a second." "Why? Because it's changed your life?" she said softly. "You've been dragged into a war that isn't yours." Michael chuckled. "You're right. My life's been turned upside down. But I don't regret it. You're worth fighting for." For a moment, Serena said nothing, her expression unreadable. Then she smiled, a genuine warmth breaking through the weight she carried. "Thank you, Michael." Serena's message was broadcast across the galaxy, her holographic image projected in council chambers, warships, and outposts far and wide. "We stand at a crossroads," she declared. "The Marauders have preyed on our division, but together we can end their reign of terror. I call upon all who seek freedom to join us in this fight." The response was overwhelming. Ships began arriving at the Coalition's outpost, bearing representatives from countless worlds. Some came with fleets, others with supplies or intelligence. For the first time in decades, a coalition of species united under a single banner. Michael watched in awe as the once isolated outpost transformed into a bustling hub of interstellar cooperation. He stood beside Serena as leaders from various worlds pledged their support, their skepticism dissolving in the face of her resolve. "Incredible," one soldier murmured to Michael as Serena addressed the gathered leaders. "She's the real deal," Michael replied, his voice filled with pride. As preparations for the united assault began, Serena and Michael found themselves drawn into countless meetings and strategy sessions. Late one night, they escaped to the observation deck for a brief moment of quiet. The stars stretched endlessly before them, a reminder of the vastness of the galaxy they were fighting to protect. Michael leaned against the railing, his gaze fixed on the shimmering expanse. "You've got the whole galaxy rallying behind you," he said, glancing at Serena. "That's something." "It's not just me," she replied. "Without you, none of this would have been possible." Michael shook his head. "You're the one they're following. I'm just the guy who pulled you out of the ocean." Serena turned to him, her expression earnest. "You're much more than that. You're my anchor, Michael. Without you, I wouldn't have had the strength to lead." For a moment, they simply stood there, the weight of their shared journey settling between them. Then, with a small, almost shy smile, Serena said, "Thank you, Michael." Michael grinned, his voice light despite the gravity of the moment. "Don't mention it. Just doing my job." But as they turned back to the stars, both knew that their bond had grown into something far deeper than either had expected, a connection forged in the fires of battle and destined to endure whatever lay ahead. The galaxy buzzed with activity as fleets converged on the coalition outpost, forming an alliance unlike any in recorded history. Species that had once been rivals now worked side by side, their combined strength a testament to the power of Serena's leadership and vision. In the command center, Michael stood with Serena, Commander Bryce, and a council of representatives. A holographic display of the Marauders' remaining forces shimmered before them, centered on their fortified headquarters, the Iron Mall, an asteroid-turned fortress surrounded by dense debris fields and automated defenses. "This is their stronghold," Commander Bryce said, pointing to the projection. "If we take this out, we crush the remnants of their fleet and end their campaign of terror." Serena's voice was steady, commanding the room's attention. "The Iron Mall's defenses are formidable, but they rely on centralized control. If we can disable their command systems, the rest of their forces will be vulnerable." Michael studied the projection, his mind already formulating a plan. "We'll need a strike team to infiltrate the state while the fleets engage their outer defenses. Hit them hard, hit them fast." The representatives exchanged wary glances, but Serena's confidence quelled their doubts. "We've come this far because we believed in something greater than ourselves. Together, we can finish this." As the Allied fleets prepared for battle, Michael found Serena standing alone on the observation deck, gazing out at the assembled ships. Her regal demeanor was intact, but he could see the weight of her responsibilities etched on her face. "You're doing it," Michael said, stepping beside her. "The galaxy's coming together because of you. Because of us." "Because of us," Serena corrected, turning to him. "You've been my strength, Michael. I wouldn't have made it without you." Michael smirked. "Well, I've never been one to back down from a fight." Her smile was faint, but genuine. "Then let's end this together." The Allied fleets launched their assault on the Iron Mall, their ships emerging from hyperspace in coordinated waves. The Marauders responded with ferocity, their defenses lighting up the void with deadly precision. The battle was a spectacle of destruction, with ships weaving through explosions and debris in a deadly dance. Amid the chaos, Michael and Serena led the infiltration team aboard a stealth vessel, slipping past the fortress's outer defenses. The corridors of the Iron Mall were dark and oppressive, the air thick with the hum of machinery. Every step was a calculated risk, the team moving with silent precision toward the central control hub. As they breached the hub, the Marauder commander, a towering figure clad in jagged armor, awaited them. His voice boomed with contempt. "So the Queen herself dares to challenge me." Serena stepped forward, her bioluminescent glow casting an ethereal light. "Your reign ends here." The commander laughed, his weapon glowing with malevolent energy. "You've brought a human pet to fight your battles. Pathetic." Michael raised his rifle, his tone calm but firm. "Let's see how pathetic you think I am when this is over." The fight was brutal. The Marauder commander was a force of nature, his strikes shattering the floor and walls. But Michael and Serena fought as one, their movements synchronized through trust and shared determination. Michael's tactics kept the commander off balance, while Serena's energy blasts wore him down. Finally, with a well-timed strike, Michael disarmed the commander and Serena delivered the finishing blow, her energy surging in a radiant burst that incapacitated him. The control hub fell silent as the team secured the area. Serena accessed the control systems, disabling the Iron Mall's defenses and sending a signal to the Allied fleets. The tide of battle shifted instantly, the Marauder forces crumbling under the coordinated assault. As they escaped the collapsing fortress, Serena turned to Michael, her voice steady despite the chaos around them. "We did it." Michael grinned, his rifle slung over his shoulder. "Damn right we did." The Allied fleets cheered as the Iron Mall exploded in a brilliant display of fire and debris, marking the end of the Marauders' reign. Back at the outpost, celebrations erupted as news of their victory spread. Representatives from across the galaxy hailed Serena as a unifying force, her courage and vision inspiring hope for a brighter future. In the quiet of the observation deck, Michael and Serena stood side by side, watching the stars. For the first time in months, the galaxy felt peaceful. "You've changed everything," Michael said softly. Serena turned to him, her expression warm. "So have you." Their bond, forged in battle and strengthened by trust, was unbreakable. As they looked toward the horizon, they knew that their journey was far from over, but they would face whatever came next together.